Very exciting day. Of course, I'm a bit, I'm of two minds because they're better than one. Of this entire back and forth in terms of, McCarthy and the Republicans that are going to be on the the January 6th commission, and then they're not, and then and the reason that 3 out of the 5 that were accepted aren't going to be on is because without the other 2, America dies. Apparently, Kevin McCarthy, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, is having a real hard time finding people in the Republican caucus, which shocks the shit out of me, that are willing to go to the mat for Donald Trump again and again and again, and want to taint themselves by throwing themselves on grenade after grenade after grenade during the January 6th commission, diverting, throwing other talking points in, and doing everything they can to stop people from recognizing that Roger Stone and Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump and a lot of his other sycophants, and perhaps the wife of Clarence Thomas, Ginny Thomas, and Charlie Kirk and Alex Jones were all kind of on a soccer mom phone tree on January 6th and leading up to it, and spending too much time learning about that would be very difficult to the Republican Party. Now, I have said multiple times that the reason why the Republicans are not interested in the January 6th commission is because, as bad as it looks for them to do this kind of stuff and not participate, it looks far worse when you find out the details. That's what they're afraid of. No matter how bad this is politically, actually investigating January 6th is worse. You know what I mean? It's an OJ thing. OJ, obviously, it's ridiculous for him to write a book called If I Did Do It as a way of saying he didn't do it. And, of course, saying all the time that he's looking for the killer and then just not even bothering. That looks bad. But it's not as bad as admitting to it outright, right? That's So, So this is what in the world is happening? All right, I see. Hi, chat room, by the way. Welcome. Thanks very much. Don't forget to hit us up with super chats and bits and the like if you're on Twitch. And memberships are available almost everywhere, including Facebook now. So that's a way you can help out the show. And, of course, patreon.com/HalSparks. I'm so trying to remember to do that. And I keep forgetting. So now I'm trying. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I haven't watched all of this. I have to admit, I caught chunks of it as it was being played on the news, and I started tweeting about it, and then I was like, I can't watch this whole thing because I want to cover it completely on the show later instead of the amount of clippage that's going on. So let's take a look, shall we?
Thank you for coming on short notice.
If I had a nickel, sorry, that's so rude. Hold on.
Thank you for coming on short notice.
That's what she said. That would have been better, I think.
Speaker Pelosi has taken the unprecedented step of
stealing Jim Jordan's jacket again.
The minority.
All he does is hang it on his chair, and somebody runs off with it. Son of a bitch.
Party's picks for the.
By the way, 3 of these things are not like the others. These guys, tan suit, bad optics. Republicans, I'm just saying, tan suit? Dude, no jacket and tan suit are going to question the patriotism of my part. All right. And then those 3 guys are the ones that got to stay. And then that's it's Chicken McCarthy right there. So.
Select committee on January 6th. This represents something that has not happened in the House before for a select committee by the historian.
That's true. Never before has a select committee been put together that included members of the people involved in the crime that is being investigated. That's new. Kevin McCarthy is still upset that, Castro and Khrushchev were not on the Warren Commission, and it just digs at him every day.
It's an egregious abuse of power.
It is an egregious abuse of power.
For a select committee by the historian. It's an egregious abuse of power.
Yeah. Nancy Pelosi, if that is your real name, I'm upset with your egregious abuses of power. There's a little known rule in English that if there's an A if there are two A words in a row, you take the second A off and put in an apostrophe. Like Kevin McCarthy is an absolute soul. See what I mean? It's just it's a weird little English thing. Hi, I'm Gary Busey, and this is abuse of power. Abusey power. Can't hear McCarthy. Is he very low? Seems very low. Hold on.
Pelosi has broken this institution.
Well, that didn't take much. Sorry, a big bunch of butch dudes like you, and you can't even. She can't even manage to. How'd you manage to just totally bury the whole? All right, hold on one second. I'm switching back to me for 1 second because I want to see if I can see if I can find an audio version of this that's a little louder. I don't know why. Go back forward. Quit it. They're so quiet. Yeah, I think that one's loud enough. We missed Jesus. Wait a minute. I thought we were the ones that, all right. Thank you. I thought we were the ones that came early. Listen to this noise when he walks out. Oh, there it is.
Thank you for coming on short notice.
That's just gross.
Thank you for coming on short notice.
Thank you for coming on short notice. Holy shit.
Speaker Pelosi has taken the unprecedented step of denying the minority party's picks.
I missed that first one. Unprecedented, not presidented. You guys are the ones that are unprecedented. I'm just saying, your party was surreptitiously unprecedented last year.
Picks for the Select Committee on January 6th. This represents something that has not happened in the House before for a Select Committee by the historian.
Mm-hmm.
It's an egregious abuse of power.
Yeah, the worst kind of abuse of power there is.
Pelosi has broken this institution.
It's done. Pack it up. We just gotta. I mean, we gotta. One of our, I guess, governmental tires is flat, and we're just gonna have to ride on three wheels. The Senate, Supreme Court, and the President are gonna have to take it from now on because the House is. I mean, you heard it. It's broken. I don't even know how we fix it or whatever. Does anyone have an Allen wrench?
Denying the voice of members who have served in the military.
Well, Timothy McVeigh served in the military. So did the Fort Hood shooter. I mean,
Jim Banks, a Navy veteran who served in Afghanistan.
Ian?
Serves on HASC. Chair of the largest caucus, the Republican Conference.
Yes, they're always bragging about how big their caucus is. Methinks Milady does protest too much.
And law enforcement, as well as a...
And law enforcement. Sure, law enforcement. Just...
The Republican Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And law enforcement, as well as a leader of a standing committee.
Who's the chair of the standing committee? Standing committee doesn't even have a chair. We all just lean against shit. He's the chair of the standing committee. Sorry.
Jim Jordan isn't ranking of just his first committee. He's done it before.
That's right. I can say unequivocally that Jim Jordan ranks.
Jim Jordan has served.
He is rank of all of the Republican caucus members. He is the most rank.
Served on select committee and serves on one now. Made it undeniable.
Why don't you pick somebody who's not on a select committee then?
This panel has lost all legitimacy.
Well, I would say 3/5 of legitimacy. Think of it as you're doing your own version of the Constitution, only you're making the changes you'd like to make now.
And credibility. And it shows exactly what I warned back at the beginning of January.
You mean when you never intended to, back at the beginning of January? You mean before January 6th? What did you know and when did you know it?
That Pelosi would play politics with this.
Well, no, you're politicians. There's Republicans and Democrats on this. This is a political committee. I mean, it's you guys are politicians. You represent people. The body politic, some would even call it.
For more than 6 months. You have a better example of the Senate. Bipartisan.
Yeah, well, none of the people in the Senate were actually texting with the people who were storming the castle.
Schumer didn't
we know
pick
of.
Who went on as the Republicans. They already have the report done by 2 different committees.
Yeah, but again, nobody in the Senate.
2 main questions.
Okay, 2 main questions. Here they are. Write them down.
Why was the Capitol so ill-prepared for that day? When they
Because I don't know why, but some people thought that the President of the United States would not direct his followers to attack the Capitol. I know. It's crazy. I think we should always be prepared for that, because if we get another Carter in there...
When they knew on December 14th they had a problem.
Well, you knew on December 14th you had a problem.
And what have we done to make sure that never happens again?
Well, you haven't funded the Capitol Police. At least the Republicans didn't want to. Well, and I think there's 2 other questions. Who was involved in staging what happened on the 6th? Was there coordination with anybody who had access? Was anybody inside the Capitol in direct contact? I mean, I have a lot of questions. Maybe we should have a committee.
Pelosi has created a sham process.
Well, 3/5 of a sham process. I beg your pardon. 4/6 of a sham process, because Liz Cheney, if you'll recall, is a Republican. She's already on there. So you guys were going to pick the other 5 of your 6.
Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate.
Well, you can't, obviously, because without Jim Jordan telling these 3 dopes what to say, they might ask the wrong question and accidentally call you as a witness, since you were in a shouting match with the president. Understand, all of this. Focus on Kevin McCarthy's sweaty, nervous, angry face right now, because he was counting on those 2 guys to object to bringing him in as a witness in this thing. And now he can't, and now he's going to deny the subpoena if they ask him to come and testify, because he's going to say this is just a partisan hack job on his good whatever.
But we think it's too important that those 2 questions...
Well, if you think it's too important, you're going to ask those questions. Those are going to be part of it, no matter who's on there. Were Jim Jordan and Jim Banks the only people who were going to ask those 2 questions? What the fuck's wrong with these guys? What the fuck's wrong with the other 3? Arguably, what's wrong with Liz Cheney? You don't think they're going to ask what happened? Why were we ill-prepared? That's not going to be part of the questioning? Why would you think that these 3 assholes can't ask those questions?
Why were we ill-prepared? Why?
Well, I don't think you were ill-prepared. I think the Capitol was largely ill-prepared. I mean, we can see that to some degree, but you weren't ill-prepared. Why were you acting on behalf of the people who actually attacked the Capitol? I think is a kind of a more crucial... It's kind of like Harvey Weinstein asking why women don't wear chastity belts. Need to get to the bottom of her bottom.
Why did they know on December 14th? Why would they jeopardize the lives of the Capitol Police?
Why did you?
We will run our own investigation.
Yeah. OJ's going to be on it with Ted Kaczynski, the ghost of Bundy and Gacy.
We have law enforcement. We have military. We have doctors. We have people from all walks of life.
Yes, you have a veterinarian. You have a cobbler. I don't know if you know that. You have a gun chick. You have a sex guru boffing QAnon. You got a lot. I mean, there's a bunch of people to choose from, Kevin. Why don't you swap out these two, pop them back in there? Why don't you throw Boebert and Marge on there? Why don't you try? That wouldn't work, would it?
They want to know the answer. The American people deserve that. They don't deserve politics. They don't deserve destroying the institution.
How is it destroying the institution? The institution's being attacked. This is specifically, this is very different than, say 9/11 or Pearl Harbor.
No committee in
No.
Congress will work if one person is picking all who can serve.
Well, she's not picking all who can serve. She's on behalf of the majority membership saying there are a couple of people who can't serve because this is kind of a unique situation.
This has not happened before.
Well, neither has January 6th, dick fuck.
House Democrats must answer this question.
Okay, what is it? How is this my problem? Didn't cops, Capitol cops, deserve to have their eyes gouged out or get tased until they had a heart attack? Who gives a shit? Hashtag Kevin McCarthy.
Why are you allowing a lame duck speaker to...
A lame duck speaker? What is... Anybody who's... How is she a lame duck? She can be speaker again.
destroy this institution? This is the people's house, not Pelosi's house.
Yeah, I know. Pelosi would never let maggots smear shit on the walls. She'd probably call security.
We will do our job, though.
What job is that? Oh, your job for the FSB, right?
We asked to do our job. We want to do our job.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to do your job because you don't want to do your job. I know he can get the job, but can he do the job?
I may object to the people that she put on the committee, but I respect her right to do it.
You have no material objection, nor do any of your members to any of the people that are on the committee.
Just as every leader has done before. Destroy an institution for your own political gain.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, asshole, that's what we call January 6th. This asshole is literally protecting people who wanted to destroy the people's house for political gain.
America expects more and deserves more.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you still got time left in your term.
That, I want to bring up Congressman Jim Banks.
Oh, Jimmy.
Individual who served his country in Afghanistan, served in a state legislature, serves in Congress, is chair of the largest caucus in the Republican
Citation needed.
Conference. Jim Banks.
Thank you. I thank the leader first and foremost for his trust that he placed in me as a leader of our...
Well, he doesn't trust you as a leader of the party. He trusts you to cover his ass and make sure that he's not hauled before that committee and questions about his phone calls with Trump.
party to put me in charge of this.
He's the executive secretary in charge of bullshit shielding.
Republican effort.
He's the executive secretary of CYA.
This just goes to show how partisan of an exercise we said this was all along.
Yeah, so partisan that Liz Cheney is on the thing already, and the other three guys were perfectly fine.
That Nancy Pelosi would take me and Jim Jordan first off of this committee.
Not first, only.
And the rest of us as well by rejecting the first two of us. She knows.
How does that kick the rest of them off by rejecting two of you? Talk about a false choice. What the fuck are you talking about? She knew that if she didn't let all of us on, Kevin McCarthy was going to take his judicial ball and go home. And I do mean singular.
We were prepared to fight to get to
Apparently not.
the truth, to find the facts about what happened.
Apparently not. Apparently the other three members of this panel were not prepared to fight. They were prepared to fuck off.
Happened on that day to make sure that January 6th would never happen again.
Well, at least on the 6th, I guess.
But she doesn't want to go down that path.
Well, not with you guys. Obviously, with the other three guys. She feels safe with them on the path. If she passes those, you two assholes, listen to me, all Pittsburgh, you two assholes on the path, she might want to take another path.
She knows that we're already asking questions in just the first couple of days that Leader McCarthy appointed us to this task, questions that Democrats have never asked.
Like?
About why the Capitol was vulnerable on that day when we had
Yeah, that's going to come up. That'll be part of it. Why can't the other three guys ask that question?
Intelligence for weeks leading up to January 6th that told us that something dangerous would happen on January 6th.
Yeah, yes. It was saying that something dangerous was going to happen on January 6th. A bunch of Trump assholes were going to show up and want to hang Mike Pence.
She knew we would fight back against their political games, and that's why she didn't want us to participate.
Yeah, that's why she didn't want you two to participate. These other three assholes apparently would participate in her political games. And I mean, honestly, does she have the other three guys? Did she have their balls on her desk? Were they stolen when people raided her office, or
in this committee? It just goes to show this is entirely a political exercise on her part. It's a shame.
Well, it's three-fifths of political act.
The American people deserve better. They demand.
Well, if they deserve better, they'd have better, and obviously they don't. They have you and him. So.
And answers about January 6th, because the American people demand that their leaders step up to make sure that it never happens again.
Well, why don't they? She won't have you two. If that's what the American people demand, find two other people in the Republican Party. And then if she says these are the only three members, I keep not including Liz Cheney. If those are the only four members that are allowed, then you guys can piss and moan all you want. Just go. I mean, there's over 150 of you
again. But
in your caucuses.
We all know that this is an exercise in politics. It's not an exercise in finding the facts, and that's what's unfortunate about the Speaker's move. It just goes.
Again, why is he shitting on his Republican colleagues? They are standing right there. The three members of this group that were allowed onto the actual committee, and the two others that would have been allowed to replace these two, for some fucking reason, this guy and Kevin McCarthy all think that all those other Republicans are toe the line Pelosi ass kissers. I mean, if you were a Republican like the other three guys, wouldn't you be insulted by this asshole right here?
This goes to show, it begs the question that all of us should be asking: what is the Speaker afraid of?
Apparently, she's not afraid of anything. She just thinks that you guys shouldn't be on the committee. Because apparently, you seem to be afraid that the other three people that Kevin McCarthy wanted on this committee are incapable of asking any tough questions, are complete wusses, and will roll over like dogs the second they sit down. Why are you insulting every other Republican?
I'll leave you with that. Jim Jordan.
Yeah, I'm sure this will be just as good.
Thank you, Jim. The leader and Jim are...
I'm sorry I didn't hear what you were saying, and I didn't notice anything you did, because I have a history of avoiding looking at things that are uncomfortable in case I'm asked about it later. But
Exactly right. This has always been about politics, and today's
for you,
actions of the Speaker just confirm that. But frankly,
that it confirmed that you guys are using this for political PR because you were never going to be joining this, that this was all a charade?
I've said this before. What else are they going to talk about? I mean, they're so focused on the January 6th committee. What else are they going to talk? They're going to talk about
Well, they're going to, the January 6th committee.
crime, the fact that crime is up in every major.
Well, no, it's a January 6th committee. There are other committees dealing with other issues. This one has a singular purpose.
Urban area in this country. They're gonna talk about the border crisis.
Well, no, because the capital was not under siege from Guatemalan immigrants and 9-year-olds in astronaut blankets. The fuck are you talking about?
I mean, think about this. March was the highest month on record for illegal crossings until April. April was the highest month on record until May. May was the highest month on record until June. Can't talk about that.
Well, no, because that's what a select committee on immigration would do. You could form one. You could have one. I mean, there is a comprehensive immigration bill that that your Republican voters actually support that you could sign or whatever. It's there. What the fuck does that have to do with January 6th? Oh, right. You need that to distract from the... Is this... Did they ever call him in front of the whole Ohio State wrestling rape accusation board? And he sat there and goes, you guys gonna even ask about how our tennis team is doing? Huh? I mean, you want to sit there and talk about sexual assault that allegedly happened that I never saw? When are we going to deal with the fact that Ohio starts with a vowel and ends with the same vowel? What are we going to do? It's high in the middle. We have a fentanyl problem. You going to deal with that? No. What the fuck is Cleveland all about? Nobody knows. So why aren't we addressing that?
They're going to talk about inflation?
No, they are not going to talk about inflation. Confused little man.
They're going to talk about the fact that the price of eggs is up, the price of milk is up, the price of bread is up, the price of gas is up, the price of an airline ticket is up, the price of the price of everything is up. They can't talk about that.
Well, they can, but not in a January 6th commission. And maybe this is why they don't want you on the January 6th commission, because apparently you have some sort of bizarre sociopathic political ADHD.
So they're going to be partisan, and they're going to focus on this.
Well, you are right. They are going to focus on January 6th because this indeed is a January 6th commission. I am honestly aghast at how lame this argument is. I'm kind of surprised.
But as the leader said, and as Mr. Banks said,
cocaine is a hell of a drug.
I don't think they're going to address the fundamental question.
Okay, what's the fundamental question? Why the fuck did a party that said back the blue like crazy for 4 years straight end up having their most hardline supporters storm the steps of the Capitol and beat cops with the Blue Lives Matter flag?
The fundamental question of why wasn't there a proper security presence at the Capitol?
Well, I'm sure that, again, I don't know why the other three guys aren't capable of asking that question. What the fuck is wrong? Kevin McCarthy. I mean, we're all focusing on Banks and Jordan. The fuck is wrong with these other three guys?
That day. They're not going to address that. And only one person can answer that question.
Well, apparently only one person can ask that question. You. Because apparently the other three assholes you brought up there, they don't, we're to expect that they are incapable of bringing in a yellow legal pad and going, hey, how come we weren't prepared? Like, that's beyond their capability? Honestly, is this guy on sedatives over here?
Only one. Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. My hunch is the reason they don't want to address that question, my hunch is because what happened all last year? The Democrats normalized anarchy.
Oh, I see. Because there were George Floyd protests that also involved rioting and looting. That just made it kind of like everybody was doing it now. So what choice did true patriots have? If we hadn't had George Floyd riots last year, then, then these guys at January 6th would have just been they would have been sticking flowers in National Guard rifles.
They normalized rioting and looting. And when rioters and looters attacked our law enforcement personnel, when rioters and looters destroyed small businesses,
it resulted in charges against them.
what did Democrats do? They went out and raised money to bail them out of jail, and
they raised money to bail the protesters out of jail who got lumped in with rioters and looters.
continue to talk about defunding the police, and in fact did that in all these major urban areas, which is why crime is up.
Yeah, still not relevant to January 6th. Maybe this is, again, why you're not on the committee.
So they don't want to talk about that stuff.
Well, sure they do, just not here.
They just want to be partisan.
Yeah, if they just wanted to be partisan, why did they accept 3 out of 5 of the people you suggested and have one Republican amongst their choices already?
They just want to continue to attack the former president. They want to play their political game. So I applaud Leader McCarthy
For chickening out?
for saying we're going to do our job. We're going to continue to work and get to the bottom and answer the questions that the leader raised, the questions that, frankly, the American people want answers to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how come you were allowed to witness the habitual and ongoing rape of minors and do nothing about it and still get to be a Republican representative in Ohio and had this jag-off thing about not wearing your jacket, so there's one less garment between you and, I guess, helping someone rape a minor? Is that what's up? Is that what the whole jacket off thing? Oh, I see. If you want to jacket off, I see. It's an inside joke between him and his rape buddy.
With that, I recognize you.
On the evening of
Why do these guys all have high, pinchy voices? Again, is it the cocaine?
January 6th, when we reconvened to take the certification of the election results from our states, I actually spoke with Speaker Pelosi on the dais, and she brought
Or the dais.
up a bipartisan, bicameral commission to me at that point in time.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And then you guys put on people who were directly partisan and were engaged in contact with people who were there on January 6th, who were part of the people storming. There are pictures of the two of these assholes with people who attacked on the 6th, which would, in an illegal circumstance, they would have to recuse themselves.
I introduced a bill to create a bipartisan, bicameral commission. We had some questions about how this would be implemented, and Speaker Pelosi decided instead to put forth her own select committee that we now know is a completely partisan process.
I see. So she decided, because she's Speaker of the House and because they have a majority, to actually run the House, and she didn't take her cues from you in the minority, Mr. Tan Suit?
It's very disappointing because I think all of us were looking forward to our first hearing next week to be able to get answers to some of the questions that were raised by Leader McCarthy, by Ranking Member Banks, and by
But apparently none of the questions by these other 3 assholes who are completely incapable.
Jim Jordan. But we're not going to get those answers in even a partisan manner.
Well, no, because apparently Jim Jordan, Kevin McCarthy, and Banks think that you can't fucking do it. You yourself are incapable of asking those questions. If Kevin McCarthy puts you on that committee with 2 other rando Republicans that Nancy Pelosi signs off on, they don't trust you to ask the right questions. They think, that guy right there, that guy thinks you are a fuck up.
On this committee because she...
And by the way, if all the Republicans were all locked together on this and they had a united front about this shit, then Kevin McCarthy would have no problem finding 2 other reliable Republicans to replace these guys on the committee, and they would just let it happen. But he doesn't, because there's nobody else in the Republican caucus that is willing to throw themselves on a grenade for Trump the way they need, except for Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz or Lauren Boebert, and he knows they're toxic as fuck and they're not qualified. They would get put on, they haven't earned the right. They're too new.
He chose to take the unprecedented step to try and veto our own members.
Well, it's an unprecedented situation. It's an attack on the Capitol by a partisan group. And you guys represent the people who attacked the fucking place, and still you've got 4 people on the committee, if you would.
We are going to continue to ask questions.
Yeah, but with no legal backing behind it, because you can pretend that you care. You know, I'm sure OJ asked all kinds of people around golf courses across the country.
And frankly, there are many unanswered questions about why this Capitol was so unprepared. And
yeah, I mean, the next time we have a president like Trump, and God willing that's never, we should always be prepared for him to unleash a bunch of psychos onto any federal property.
Key question, as Leader McCarthy said, is, are we in a better position now, security-wise?
Yes, Trump is not in office. That helps.
There are many issues that we saw in Capitol Police, IG reports, and others that laid out reasons why our officers didn't have the equipment, they didn't have the training, and they didn't have the preparation and the backup to adequately address what happened on January 6th.
Yeah, but one of the reasons is why should they, in most circumstances, expect a quote-unquote group of patriots who support Donald Trump? Why should they expect an onslaught on the day? I mean, in all honesty, like, knowing Trump, knowing who they are, knowing the maggots, this is not surprising. But all things being equal, and people going, there's no fucking way these assholes are going to attack police officers. After the law and order bullshit and the back the blue nonsense, there's just no way. We're not going to need a lot of cops to stop these folks, because they're not here to murder anybody. They might just yell a lot, but they're not going to stomp a cop to death or break their spine or gouge their eye out or tase one till he has... That's not going to happen. We shouldn't need this. That's why. The reason all of this happened, and I mean, if that's their big question, the reason we weren't prepared is because it honestly didn't occur to anyone that something this fucking awful would happen to the United States from within in this day and age. That the Republicans have sunk so goddamn low that this is okay, and they're so intertwined with it, they don't dare participate in any kind of examination of it, because if they do, they're fucked.
Why?
Because you shouldn't expect the president to say, we're going to walk down there and we're going to show some strength, and if you guys don't, if they don't do what's right, we might have to give them the courage to do what's right. And P.S., who's got the wood to build the gallows? Who brought that?
And what have we done? What has the Speaker done? And more importantly, what has she asked the Capitol Police Board that is made up of her own appointee? What have they done to...
Made up of her own appointee? There's a board that has one appointee?
Put this Capitol complex in a situation to address another security issue.
Yeah, there is no situation where Trump is president again in this regard. I mean, honest to God, they could throw a bunch of money into the Capitol Police and train them for something like this. It's not going to happen again like this. It just isn't. Next time anything even close to shit like this happens, if Biden decides in 2024, right before the election or right after the election, I don't believe that Ted Cruz really won, and on January 6th, he's got a bunch of people out on the fucking lawn in front of the Capitol, there's going to be a shit ton of National Guards people. It's not going to be relying on the Capitol Police to do this shit. It's never going to happen. It's goofy. It's ridiculous. I mean, we can throw some more money their way, and they deserve it, and we can throw some more support their way, and they probably need more forces there, and just in general work, so they have a better rotation situation. But most of these folks are just like the cops that work at a county office or a friggin', the judicial building in some major city. Most of the time, they stand there watching people put their keys in a tray and then go through a metal detector. It's not a lot, but in this particular situation, there was a special moment where the guy that all of these assholes would crawl through broken glass to give a rusty trombone to, Donald Trump created a unique moment where he had no control over his own lunatics.
Those questions would have been asked.
And they're not going to be asked by you and those two guys. They won't get asked. If Jim Jordan and Banks don't ask them, you guys don't have the balls. That's what we get. Okay, got it.
Questions will still be asked, regardless of whether or not she continues to play politics. And I'll end with this by...
Well, why can't you ask them on the fucking committee? I don't get that. I mean, honest to God. How can you keep saying this?
Saying,
dumb. Oh, thanks, Lee.
I've seen and witnessed political violence personally out on a baseball field in Virginia just a few short years ago. I've seen what well-trained Capitol Police officers like David Bailey and Crystal Griner were able to do to run toward gunfire as we ran away from it. And it's disappointing to see that our Capitol Police officers who I witnessed that bravery that day are still not put in a position to be able to make sure that another type of January 6th would not happen again.
That's why. And why the fuck are you chickening out of being on the panel to make sure that that doesn't happen? What the fuck stops this? Why is it that these two assholes are unique to those questions? Seriously. How little faith does Kevin McCarthy have in every other Republican except Jim Jordan and Jim Banks?
She needs to answer questions. We were hoping to get those answers, but unfortunately, we're not going to. I'd like to introduce Kelly Armstrong.
Another guy who Kevin McCarthy has no faith in, and if he knows that if he sat on the committee without Jim Jordan with his hand up his ass, he'd fuck it all up.
Thanks, Rodney. I agree with everything that's been said.
Well, then why doesn't he put you on the fucking committee? Because you could just have Jim Jordan give you a list of shit.
Served for 2 years with Jim Jordan on oversight and judiciary.
And learned nothing.
We've been through a lot of tough hearings together, a lot of hearings that were going to be similar to this. And we know how to do this. We have credibility with the American people.
Which is probably McCarthy's biggest fear.
And to strike Jim Banks and Jim Jordan from this committee is just unacceptable. And I think it's important to recognize that every time Speaker Pelosi uses the word unprecedented, it happens to consolidate absolute power in the Speaker's office.
Well, obviously not, because if she wanted absolute power, she would just make a Dem-only non-partisan group and just stomp on you guys with a big wet foot.
It was unprecedented to build a glass cage in order to make sure she got the gavel. It was
a glass cage? Oh, is that a woman thing?
Unprecedented to put metal detectors on the floor of the House. It's unprecedented to
yeah, but I mean that's an issue with people who are bringing guns on the floor.
Have proxy voting, and it's sure unprecedented for the majority leader to strike minority members for a committee. I don't think this committee is about the last election. I don't even think it's about the next election. It's about the Speaker's office maintaining an absolute iron grip on her conference in the People's House for the next.
Well, then, if she was trying to keep an iron grip, why would she let you on? Are you that squishy? Are you that weak? Because understand, McCarthy thinks you're a fuck up too. He would rather pull everyone from this committee than let you or any other 4 Republicans on the panel. Without Jim Jordan and Banks, he does not trust you to not blow the whole thing. This guy thinks you are a loser.
Next 18 months. And I'm concerned that after 200 years of precedent, we're completely altering how things are done in the People's House. But you know what else?
Well, yes. Has it been 200 years? I guess 1812 since the Capitol was stormed? Sure.
I'd be concerned if I was a majority member right now, because the math, and their policies are going to help us take back the majority in 2 years. And these things never go back to the way they were once they started. So we need to be calling out what's going on. Every member of the U.S. House of Representatives is elected by their district, and they have a right to serve. And the minority has a right to put the people on the committees they want. And we shouldn't be changing those for this committee or any other committee. And with that, I turn it over to Sheriff Nels.
Yeah, Nels, another guy who McCarthy thinks is a complete fuck up.
When I was chosen by Leader McCarthy to
I knew it was a joke.
serve on this select committee,
I knew it was never going to happen.
I assured him, I told him, I said,
That I don't need Jim Jordan to hold my ball.
I will take the 30 years of law enforcement experience I have, the 8 years as sheriff, to uncover, find out exactly what took place on January 6th, to find the truth.
And that is what Kevin McCarthy is afraid of. He actually said, no, don't do that, don't do that.
As to why this Capitol was so unprepared. I spent countless hours. I brought this binder up.
I did so much work, and he's yanking me off the goddamn thing.
I've examined the Senate report.
Well, you wasted my fucking time, Kevin.
Examining, talking, looking at
Look what
witness
I did,
statements.
Kevin.
Looking at the Capitol
Damn it.
Hill's policies and procedures.
I did, Kevin, and you're yanking me from this thing because of this fucker who can't even find his jacket. I was a sheriff.
And I was alarmed, truly alarmed, at what I uncovered.
And I'm not going to get to ask all the questions I have and show all the hard work I did because Kevin McCarthy is subservient to Trump and this fucker for some reason. The good dude with the yellow tie. He's wearing his honorary Kevin McCarthy chicken shit tie.
I was certainly prepared to help this committee get to
Oh yeah, he's definitely louder. Sorry. He's leaning into that mic.
the truth. I wanted to get to the truth.
Yeah, which is why Kevin McCarthy pulled me off the committee.
But unfortunately, Speaker Pelosi has shown that she's more interested in playing politics.
Well, if that was true, why the fuck was she going to let you on?
I stand with Leader McCarthy and the
Well, you don't have a choice. You can't join it without his permission.
other colleagues
You'll lose your other chance at other committees.
on this committee. I assured the leader that I will continue to play a role and do everything I can to make sure that what took place on January 6th.
Well, obviously that's not true because part of what you could do, technically, if you had any habals, is to actually go against the leader and join this commission and ask all those tough questions and show all that evidence that you gathered and prove your bona fides on the, in the questioning process in this committee. You could do that. That would be part of everything you can do. You are not doing everything you can do. You are specifically not doing everything you can do because you have removed yourself and your years of experience in law enforcement and your valuable evidence and your valuable investigative procedures and all the information that you've uncovered, and you have removed that from the committee and instead chose to take your head and shove it up this guy's ass and start tongue wagging.
Can never, ever happen again.
No, it can, thanks to you being a chicken shit and him being a chicken shit and these guys being a chicken shit, if you actually believe you would participate in a way that would make the Capitol safer, you are definitely not doing what it takes to make sure that January 6th never happens again and the Capitol Police are safe. If you think you are unique in your ability to do anything about this, then you would go ahead and be on the committee anyways. But you don't. Neither does he. This is all bullshit.
In this great country of ours. I made that.
Excuse me. You have chosen not to participate in making this country even better. So go easy.
That commitment. I will remain strong.
No, you will not. You're not strong. You're leaving. You're tucking your tail between your legs and you're doing what this asshole tells you to do.
In that commitment to the leader. Thank you.
Remain strong in my commitment to the leader.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Leader, you're complaining that you don't have a bipartisan opportunity here to investigate January 6th, but you stood in the way of a bipartisan commission that would be made up of independent members, an equal number of Republicans and
No, I didn't.
Democrats. Your conference voted against that. At least a majority of your conference voted against it, and it was blocked in the Senate. Why did you not allow that to go forward if what you say you want is a bipartisan?
By the way, Jim Jordan is pissed that question's even being asked. How dare you ask this guy a question based on his past actions?
Partisan investigation into what happened on January 6th.
For the same politics Pelosi played then. At the same time, what she used the scope of that. Remember how long it took? On January 13th, Rodney Davis and myself both requested a 9/11 commission.
Well, there was already a 9/11 commission. You mean a January 6th commission, like 9/11?
Even those who ran the 9/11 commission criticized Nancy Pelosi for what she wanted to do.
What did Nancy Pelosi want to do on 9/11?
We had Officer Evans killed on Good Friday, but she said you couldn't look at that.
One moment, please. Dum 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 dum. Those of you who don't remember, that's the guy who drove up in a car, let's see. Let me find the actual article on. Yeah, here you go. Get out of here. For those of you who don't remember, the guy drove up to the White House gate, or the Capitol gate, one of them, and ran over one police officer, got out with a knife, and the guy was killed. One Capitol police officer is dead and another injured after a man's attempt to get inside the complex failed Friday afternoon. Just after 1 p.m. Friday, a man drove to the Capitol complex, ramming the blue sedan into two officers at the north barricade. After that, he tried to drive through the barricade itself. Suspect then got out of the car with a knife in hand, said Yogananda Pittman. From what we can see of the video this time, he started to run aggressively towards Capitol Police. They fired on the suspect. To be clear, reports from other media indicate that he actually stabbed at least one officer. Pittman said that is not true based on the video. Yeah, he ran them over with his car. Immediately, officers locked down the Capitol. Pelosi chose to have him lie in state. Let's see. Pittman said, I would just ask the public to keep the U.S. Capitol Police in their prayers. It's been an extremely difficult time. What do we know about the suspect? Noah Green, former Covington, Virginia resident, graduated 2014 from Allegheny High. Green, who has 7 sisters and 2 brothers, got his start and did transferring to Newport University School, confirmed his status of former student. His link is football player. He graduated CNU with a degree in finance, but while that tells a bit about his background, it doesn't answer the question, why attack Capitol Police? For that, no one has an answer yet. And again, what does that have to do? We've had people, let's see. Man attacks Capitol. There's a, let's see. Let's try to find one of the. Let's see. Attack on Capitol 2004. Was it 2004? Yeah. This is from September 21st. That's the state capitol in Illinois. It's just going to go back to there. Yeah, so here's a picture. This is what happened. There was, I would argue that the folks that would say, "What we need to find out why we weren't prepared on January 6th for an attack like we saw." Well, clearly, in this circumstance, besides the fact that this guy caught these cops off guard as they were walking by and managed to time his correctly so that he could strike, one of them killing them and one injuring them, is that they were prepared. See this little barrier? They have to lower that before you can pass. There's no, wooden plank that goes up and down. They have to lower that thing for you to drive past it. He crashed right into it. So they were prepared. And it was a random lone wolf attack. That's it. What does this have to do with January 6th? Fucking nothing. It needs its own investigation. there's details to be found, but they never found anything that said that he was, they undercover, that he had any help, that he had any support, that there was any information ahead of time, that he was gonna do this kind of shit. And if they do end up finding anything over the next year or so as they're digging into this shit, more than likely it will be like every other lone wolf lunatic that we find. And nobody called. I'll tell you what, Lauren Boebert didn't call down and go, I'm expecting a blue sedan to come in. Can you guys lower the barrier so that you can get in? Hi. Aw. Love you too. You're going to the gym now? Okay. Well, the summer brought me this. It's a little stone heart, and I leave it all over the house, and whenever she finds it, it's a little reminder that I love her, so that I just now I gotta go hide it again. She just found it again. So, in this particular instance, everything that they're asking about the January 6th stuff is already answered, or is in the process of being answered by an ongoing investigation that is currently happening with FBI, Capitol Police, Department of Homeland Security, and all this kind of shit around that. There you go. Honestly. So, in the case of McCarthy's questions about that, why aren't we including that? Because it has fucking nothing to do with it. Why aren't New York, why isn't the Vice Squad in New York doing raids in New Mexico? Are you saying that the fentanyl that's in New Mexico isn't important, NYPD? Why aren't the Capitol Police protecting every capital in the United States? Every state capital, every capital letter. Jesus Christ, this is dumb.
If you study the 9/11 Commission, they didn't study what happened on just September 11th. They studied.
And they sure as fuck didn't just study any rando Muslim terrorist by himself someplace either. There was nothing about the 9/11 Commission where they're like, what about this guy over here by himself? What about this black Hebrew Israelite dude in Brooklyn shooting some Jews? I mean, obviously, it's clear that the 9/11 hijackers were all anti-Semitic. They have to be, kinda, right? It's part of the raison d'etre, mixed all in there. Of course, right? So why wouldn't you look at that guy? Because we're trying to solve this.
Study what built up to it.
Yes. That's the big fear you have. And by the way, this is the tell-all. This is when he thanks, Joanne. This is the tell. This is his exact fear. Because that's exactly what the Pelosi commission is going to look into. What led up to this? And by the way, does he mean what led up to this in terms of the normalization of rioting? Get the fuck out of here. How do maggot patriots not raid and riot and murder and stomp their own to death? How do they not do that when they watch BLM do it and they're like, oh, I want to get me some of that?
But she said, no, you could not do that.
No, she didn't. How's the guy killed on Good Friday? How's it part of the lead up?
Why would she make a scope that you couldn't get the answers to?
I honestly, I don't know what that part is about. It's hard to tell what the fuck he's talking about. And maybe this is his best work so far in this entire press conference, is because he sounds like he's talking about something substantive, and yet there is nothing substantive in what he's saying.
Why would an officer's life not matter to her?
It does matter. It's just unrelated. And as a matter of fact, Kevin McCarthy, why does it not matter to you that it deserves its own investigation and has nothing? Why would you use his death as political fodder for something completely unrelated? Why would you try to bog down the harm that came to officers on January 6th with unrelated cases? What sergeant at a police department would take two of his investigators who are working on a murder and specifically like somebody and a uniform series of murders? They're working on a serial killer, and then make them work on a distinct home invasion of a buddy of his just to like I mean, people are dying. It's a dead. What are you saying? Dead people don't matter? Yeah, but we're working on a particular case, so there aren't more dead people. Yeah, but I mean, so you're saying these people deserve to die at this other house? It's this home invasion. Well, no, we're after a serial killer. You've got other detectives. Put them on that. They can't do that. Why? Because I don't want the answers.
That's why people objected.
People didn't object. You objected.
People asked for it before. She played 6 months with this. Why she played her games and continued to do so? The Senate acted. 2 committees. The report is done. The FBI has arrested more than 500 people. The architect of the Capitol has $10 million. And what does she do today?
Well, obviously, there's a big part of it which involves members of your party.
Continue the same sham she's done all along. Never, never in the history of this institution for a select committee, and she admitted to me when she called me, have they ever done something like this?
Yes, never in the history of this country has obvious followers of a Republican president stormed the Capitol with the materials necessary to lynch the vice president. I would argue this is unique.
Think for one moment.
Okay. Done.
Jim Banks is a naval officer.
Yeah, and? Hold on, 1 second. Let's see. 1 moment, if I may. Here's the 3 guys involved in the Oklahoma City bombing. Michael Fortier. Let's see. Okay. McVeigh performed well on standardized in high school, did not miss a single day of school. He was a good student. All right. He enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1988, basic training. He found a friend in platoon leader Terry Nichols. Terry Nichols was also in the Army. He met Timothy McVeigh in basic training at Fort Benning. Their friendship continued to grow as the 2 served in Fort Riley, Kansas. Nichols and McVeigh shared a common hostility to gun control and a common... So, yeah, 3 guys with military service, right? So, by the way, Kevin McCarthy would want you to assume that the fact that these guys served in the military should erase anything they did after that fact. That from this point on, if they want to fill a Ryder truck with manure and park it in front of a bunch of 6-year-olds playing with in a foam pit in the bottom floor of a state building and detonate it, that's ancillary. You're playing partisan politics. What is wrong with you? Never before have 3 members of our military, veterans, been attacked in such a horrific way.
Defended his nation, served in Afghanistan, elected by his peers of the largest conference in the committee, but she wants to say, predetermined, that he can't serve.
Well, yeah, I think it's because he was taking pictures with people who are actually being charged in relation to January 6th.
That Pelosi can pick and choose. Jim Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, how are we supposed to rape someone during this committee, if we don't have somebody, running block on us? I mean, that's why his jacket's always off, because he's really good about this. He always has a jacket, but he never wears it, so he can drape it over the on the little peg in the bathroom stall, so it hides the seam between the doors, so nobody can see what's going on the inside. It's really cool of him. Jim Jordan, yeah, basically his jacket is a rape obscuring device.
Is she afraid of a question from Jim?
Apparently she's not afraid of the questions from the other guys, but you are.
She's afraid what he might ask or fight for?
Well, no, she's afraid he will waste their fucking time asking about riots last year or unrelated topics or inflation while they're talking to a cop who was nearly tased to death.
Fight for? He's a ranking member. Not his
Yes, he's rank. We agree.
first committee, but his second. Why would she be afraid?
She's not afraid. She's disgusted. There's a difference.
Did she set the committee itself to be one-sided?
Well, if she did, then she's counting on the other three people you recommended to help her make it one-sided. How'd you fuck up this bad, Kevin, that 3/5 of the people you suggested would help Nancy Pelosi have an iron grip on this committee and be this lame duck speaker would be able to destroy the House of Representatives with the help of these three assholes?
Yes. More
No.
so than any select committee before? Yes, she did. We warned you from that moment in time she was playing politics. Today just showed the American people exactly what everybody was warned.
Why? She didn't kick them all off. She just kicked these two assholes off. Why don't you replace them? Why don't you go, yeah, it's not a problem. Everybody in the, our entire caucus is amazing. I have the trust and faith in every single member of the Republican House. If they've got a problem with these two, so what? We're worried about truth and we want to know what happened and we care about the Capitol and we will use this and we'll rub it in Nancy Pelosi's face every goddamn day during the committee, every single time.
It's American people who lose in this.
No, it's you and Jim Jordan Banks. The rest of us don't give a fuck.
But we're not going to allow that to happen.
Well, of course you are. Of course you are. You're going to allow that to happen. You're not going to stop it. You're not even going to be there.
We're going to get to the answer of the question. Why were we ill-prepared? Why?
Because nobody expected your buddy Donald Trump to actually get his supporters to attack the Capitol, build a gallows, and try to murder the vice president. That was it was a bit of a bridge too far for the Beltway mentality where they're like, he's not really going to do that shit, is he? You know what I mean? It's like when you ever see somebody, unfortunately, either in like a movie or even in a real video where somebody walks up with a gun and just shoots somebody, and that moment where the person is in, for a moment they're like, maybe if I put my hands up, they won't think I'm a threat and they won't shoot me, and then they'll start saying stuff like, whoa, I didn't, stuff, that kind of stuff, and then they end up getting shot. Take that moment in that circumstance and stretch that out over a couple of days. That's what that is. All the Capitol Police, the Republicans, Democrats in the House that weren't a part of this. Now, don't get me started on the fact that he's actually part of this. But they were basically going, whoa, wait a minute. What? I'm not. That's what that was.
Why, if they knew on December 14th?
They didn't know on December 14th. They were concerned on December 14th. They knew Trump was having a rally on the 6th.
Why, if they found IEDs earlier in the morning? Why were not the National Guard here at the Capitol, but they were running street signs down in the city?
Running street signs down in the city?
Who made that judgment?
Let's see. Who ordered the National Guard to stand down? Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to find as partisan and left-wing a source I could possibly find. So I went to the Military Times. There you go. Let's see. This is why the National Guard didn't respond to the attack on the Capitol. I'm just trying to. This is the name of this article. This is the quit it. Will you quit? There you go. This is why the National Guard didn't respond to the attack on the Capitol. There it is. Your military. That's what this is called. There you go. Hundreds of National Guard troops were posted in the streets of Washington, D.C. on Wednesday afternoon. Apparently, they were fixing signs. But there was little they could do to respond as pro-Trump rioters overran the Capitol. Excuse me, Military Times? Citation needed. That was BLM and Antifa and a ladies' book club that was violently attacking. Investigations are imminent to determine whether the Capitol Police were undermanned and unprepared for the threat posed by 2 days of rallies against the results of the 2020 election. But the answer as to why troops posted blocks away were unable to respond to the siege is simple, or as complicated as a morass of bureaucracy. Simply put, the National Guard only shows up to D.C. when they've been invited, and the Capitol Police did not extend that invitation until after the breach. According to a source with knowledge of the process, who was not authorized to speak about it on the record. The several hundred troops posted around downtown D.C. on Wednesday were there at the request of Mayor Muriel Bowser to support local police. I could say Muriel, sure. We had worked out that the support we were providing the Metropolitan Police Department would be on traffic control points, the source said, including downtown subway stations and select blocks where teams of 2 guardsmen and several vehicles were keeping the streets clear of cars. Bowser put in a request for support on December 31st. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy told reporters on Thursday the Defense Department was in contact with the Capitol Police ahead of Tuesday and Wednesday's protests. Kenneth Rapuano, the Assistant Defense Secretary for Homeland Defense, told reporters during a press call on Thursday they asserted that they would not be requesting National Guard support, he said. DCNG announced Monday it had mobilized 340 troops to support MPD, but that organization's jurisdiction does not cover any federal land within the district, and so its officers and its Guard support could not have just rushed the Capitol. Further, once they got there, Guard troops who had been acting in traffic control capacity, not as law enforcement, would not have been able or authorized to forcibly push back on the rioters to help clear the building, a task that fell to the Capitol Police and the FBI tactical forces they requested to help out. So when the chaos unfolded Wednesday afternoon, a report surfaced that there had been a request for additional Guard troops and the Defense Department had denied it. Here's what really happened. Because of D.C.'s finicky federal status, any entity, whether it's the mayor or the Interior Department, which controls the federal parks within the district, has to put in a request for National Guard troops through the Army Secretary, who gets it endorsed by the Defense Secretary. The Capitol's request for Guard backup went beyond what Bowser had already gotten approved, so it needed a new sign-off. We quickly worked to move our resources forward in support of Metro PD and the Capitol Police, McCarthy said Thursday. The process took about an hour. The source familiar with told Military Times, from the time McCarthy received it around 2 p.m. on Wednesday, we wanted to make sure, based on what we saw developing, that that was an acceptable use all the way up to the SecDef, which didn't take long. The source said, including about half an hour spent relaying the request to Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller. It was 3:36 p.m. when the White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany tweeted that President Donald Trump had directed the activation of more troops. Technically, Pentagon spokesman Jonathan Hoffman told reporters on Thursday the president had given Miller the green light to call up National Guard days earlier. Alternative reports asserted that Miller had spoken with Vice President Mike Pence about the decision, but that would have been more of a courtesy to keep the White House informed. The source familiar told Military Times, not a request for permission. At 3:52 p.m., Hoffman tweeted that Miller had mobilized more D.C. Guard to respond, a characteristic sequence of announcements during the administration during which the Pentagon has been reluctant to speak before the White House, despite having the lead on decision-making. Once activated, the D.C. Guardsmen made their way to the Armory, where they donned protective gear, loaded up vehicles, and made their way to the Capitol. They were there before a mandatory curfew began at 6 p.m. and stayed into the night to perform crowd control on protesters who refused to pack it in. Then and now, the chaos unfolding in D.C. feels very familiar. After weeks of protests erupted in June, then the killing of George Floyd, an unarmed black man who prosecutors say was killed at the hands of a white Minneapolis police officer, sparked nationwide demonstrations, some of which turned violent. After one such demonstration on May 31st, resulting in the burning of a church near the White House, several federal and local authorities called for National Guard support, and thousands of troops streamed in from as far as Utah. There they are. Photos of Guard troops on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial circulated new on Wednesday, with questions as to why there were so many troops on hand during Black Lives Matter protests, but so few security personnel on the steps of the Capitol on Wednesday, as hundreds of pro-Trump rioters breached the building and terrorized the lawmakers and their staffs within. The answer is twofold. The photo is from days after the initial clashes, after security forces from multiple agencies flooded D.C. to protect commercial blocks and historical sites. And in order to have had that present on Wednesday, the Capitol Police would have needed to anticipate what kind of threat they faced. There must be an investigation into why National Guard troops were not mobilized to the Capitol earlier to stop the insurrectionists from storming the building and disrupting the 2020 presidential election certification process. A former Trump cabinet member who asked not to be named told Military Times on Wednesday, "Why wasn't the D.C. National Guard and perhaps Guard troops from Maryland and Virginia there ahead of the time?" former cabinet member said. Legislators from both the Democratic and Republican sides of Congress have called for an investigation. It makes absolutely no sense they were not there ahead of time, the former Trump cabinet member said. This is not an intelligence failure. The president invited these folks to Washington. He met with them and incited them. Everyone knew they were coming for a significant amount of time. By the way, this is the former cabinet member that he's talking about. This is not intelligent. The president invited these folks to Washington. He's not talking about the Guard. He's talking about the fuckers at the actual rally. He met with them and incited them. Everyone knew they were coming for a significant period of time. The investigation should include questions about why there were two different responses between Wednesday's reaction by the Guard and enforcement agencies and what took place in June. Look what happened last spring, said the former Trump cabinet member. President activated the National Guard and strolled to a church with a Bible in his hand. The Black Lives Matter folks were not doing anything comparable to what the Trump supporters were doing yesterday. They had a huge show of force then. Why not Wednesday? As for suggestions, some of the rioters at the Capitol were actually Antifa members in disguise, the former Trump cabinet member was blunt. This is absolute bullshit. Totally, completely wrong, the former cabinet member said. The president invites them to come to Washington, speaks to them in front of the White House, and incites them to march to the Hill, and crazy Rudy Giuliani says they should do this by combat, and now they're saying it's other people? That's crazy. Can we not all just pretend while Kevin McCarthy is talking that we didn't see this shit the whole time? Just embarrassing. We've read these articles. All of us have. Am I frozen? Did it freeze?
Yes, sir.
It might have been because of the page I had opened. Anyways, just to clarify that these are not new questions. They did not invent these fucking questions. A lot of these questions are being answered or have been answered. This isn't the giant mystery. And by the way, news folks, bless your hearts. MSNBC, CNN, Fox, everybody who's covering this, bless your heart. But can you not fucking pretend that he's actually saying something? That's just aggravating. He's not presenting questions that nobody else ever thought of or that are going to not be asked at this goddamn commission. This whole charade is nonsense.
You said in your statement that Republicans will, quote, instead pursue our own investigation of the facts.
Yes.
What does that look like, first off? And secondly, is this your final move?
It looks like Trump's healthcare plan. You could hold them right up to next to each other and compare them.
Pulling your appointees, or is there a chance to reverse this?
The only way to reverse this is seat these 5. That's the only way.
Well, she was going to seat 3. Why the fuck are these guys special?
But I will add to this to be able to look at
Yeah, to the good of fru. Absolutely. And he will add to the good of fru.
the challenge of what happened and answer those 2 questions.
Yeah, they're going to answer those 2 questions. And again, why are the other 3 guys completely incapable of asking 2 fucking questions?
Why were we ill prepared?
Yes, we know the questions. And why can't that dude right over there give him those 2 questions and put him on the goddamn committee? And then bring 2 other people to replace Jim Jordan and Jim Banks. If the questions are important, have that fucker or have the other guy ask him or the third guy ask him. As a matter of fact, If you ask Liz Cheney really fucking nice, I bet you she might already be planning on asking those questions. Dum-dum.
And make sure it never happens again.
Yeah, but that's not a question. The whole purpose of the panel is that it doesn't happen again. So if you're not participating in the panel, you don't give a rat's ass if it happens again. How hard is that to figure out? Son of a bitch.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's your investigation look like? Are you going to use a magnifying glass? Are you going to have like a deer stalker hat on like Sherlock Holmes? Who's Watson in this little oiled up rubathon?
In addition to those questions, do you intend to look at why this happened? Not the security failures, but why there was an attack on the Capitol? What led up to it?
We'll answer all the questions.
Yeah, we're going to answer all those questions.
Mr. Leader, I want to know more specifically, what do you say to these families and to these officers, including officers that you met with,
Yes.
about this? And
What about the officers you refused to meet?
more specifically, you know, many of them, they're just frustrated. They see this as politics, but at the end of the day, you
It's true,
and
it
the
is
Speaker are
politics,
pointing
You are politics.
fingers at each other. So how does that help them if you guys
What
are
helps them
pointing
is we
fingers
will
at
go
each
forward
other?
just as I promised them, and we'll get the answer to those questions. We'll make sure they're protected, just as we'll talk about Officer Evans, too, who died on Good Friday.
But how?
What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Honest to God. What's your solution? Here's an idea. I'll tell you what. I'll save you a lot of fucking work for people like Evans, okay? You know those barriers that they have that you have to cross? You know those things that they get, the turn, like the pins they put in the ground that you can either automate or move by, by hand? So you have one layer of those things, and then the pins come up. You can have the officers stand behind the pins, but in front of the other barrier, if they need to walk up to a car and that kind of stuff, and that they get to come in. It's like a little mini metal airlock that the car moves into before it can go in to the actual Capitol. And you just kind of, as they roll up, they roll through, they get inside, it goes back up, so the next car can't just drive up. The cops that are working can walk around the vehicle and talk and stuff, and they go, okay, yeah, you can go, and then you lower this part, and they drive the fuck through. I fixed it. Done. Fuck off. What are you going to tell me? It's expensive? It's the goddamn capital of the United States of America. It's 3 fucking entrances.
We'll go through and get the answers. Yes.
No, you won't. But in 2 weeks.
Mr. Leader, on May 20th in this room, I think you told us that you were prepared to testify about your conversation with President Trump on the afternoon of January 6th. Do you still stand by that? Are you still prepared to testify about your conversation?
My phone call is out there. The question is,
Yeah, no, it isn't. They're reporting about it is. Do you have a recording of it? We would love to hear it.
a phone call after people are in the Capitol to advise the president of what's going on doesn't get to the answer of why were we ill prepared.
No, but it gets to the point of why aren't National Guard troops being sent right now? Who's delaying them? Is the president playing a part of delaying those troops?
Really playing politics, and it really shows that that's the issue that they want to go to, of where they want to drive. We want to get all the answers. Yes.
Well, good. Okay, well, that would be included in the all the answers block. And it would have more to do with January 6th and how it played out, and fish stinks from the head. So obviously, if Biden was president on a day like January 6th, you absolutely would lay it all at his feet. Same with Obama or Jimmy Carter or Billy, like Bill Clinton, anybody like that. So, but the answer you want is why a guy who was killed on another day, and we know exactly why, because the guy was an extremist and he drove his car into them.
Your own ranking member, John Katko, said the scope of the bipartisan independent January 6th commission that he crafted had the ability to, have a wider scope outside of January 6th.
Unfortunately, the Democrats and Pelosi said no to that.
And you and Republican leaders still opposed it. The question...
Ouch. Sorry, run that by me again?
Wider scope outside.
It had a wider
of January
scope.
6th.
Unfortunately, the Democrats and Pelosi said no to that.
And you and Republican leaders still opposed it. The question is, what would you need to have it? You opposed the independent commission. Like what would it take for you to sign on to something similar to that.
It's very easy, exactly what we said on the 13th of January. Why Pelosi played politics, make it just like the 9/11. Let us discover what
Make
built
it
up.
just like the 9/11.
Why was that decision made? The National Guard were not here when on December 14th. Can I answer the question? Okay, let me answer the question. So on December 14th, they became aware that there was a problem. They made a decision to have National Guard without weapons down on the streets to do traffic, but not in the Capitol. They found IEDs earlier in the morning. We had an
That's Department of Homeland Security.
officer killed beyond that day. On
After? After is another way of saying beyond that
Friday.
day.
But Pelosi would only let us with a scope this far. I don't believe it allowed to go further.
Pelosi would only let us with scope this far. You know, English is fun and dumb and mental.
Further, and I think we need to. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Leader, Speaker Pelosi didn't actually enumerate her objections when she, in her official notice about rejecting her members. But
She did to me.
That's what I was going to say. What did she tell you? Democrats have told us that among their objections, and I'd like you to respond to this, are that Republican members recently were photographed with someone who was here and broke into the Capitol on January 6th, and also they
No, she never
complained.
said nothing about that.
Well, okay.
She never said nothing about that? Oh, so she did. That's a double negative. So she did say something about that. Good to know.
Well, this is something that we're being told is an issue.
She said her members didn't want her to put these people out.
Okay. Could you
Because they were the ones who showed her the pictures of Jim Jordan and Banks with people who attacked us on the 6th.
speak to that idea, though, that members, including Mr. Jordan,
I don't know
that
what you're talking
participated
about.
in? Okay,
I don't know
and
what
then
you're talking about.
the idea that some of your words about needing an investigation of last summer's protests and riots,
No.
as you say, are
No, let me be
Democrats
clear.
object to that. Yeah.
Let me be clear. They shouldn't object to that. If they want a 9/11 commission, the 9/11 commission.
The 9/11 Commission did not look into Pearl Harbor. The 9/11 Commission did not look into the civil rights riots of the 60s. The 9/11 Commission looked into 9/11 and the stuff that led up to the actual 9/11.
Looked at September 11th, but they looked at what built up and caused 9/11.
Yes, they didn't go back to the Crusades.
Should we not look at what built up and caused this?
Yes, we should. Including in your question about why weren't we prepared, what Trump was talking to you about on the day when it happened, when the troops were delayed.
Should we not question why the National Guard was not allowed onto the Capitol?
Well, it's because of the law. The question is, when they were triggered, what took so long? Why was there, in the situation where they were literally storming it, where it was all over television, why was there a half-hour delay in the request for National Guard troops to the okay of them? It doesn't take you a half hour to say yes and sign an emergency authorization.
Should we not question why are the Capitol Police not fully trained? You're putting their lives in danger.
You're putting their lives in danger. You are. These were Trump supporters.
Why were the riot gear stuck and locked in a bus down the street?
Because they weren't expecting a riot. They were expecting maybe people to push back, but they weren't. They should have known. You're right, Kevin McCarthy. They should have known that if Donald Trump does a rally anywhere near where something important is going on, people will die. I think that's a good general rule. I think we've all learned.
We need these answers for these officers. We need to not ever put them in this place again. Yes.
Yeah, never put them in this pace again.
Yes, sir. Will the Republican committee look at President Trump's actions leading up to and on January 6th?
We'll look at anything that built up of what caused this place to not be protected.
So, yeah. So we're just going to look at the laws around whether or not the National Guard is allowed on federal land and how long it took to draw it up and whether they were asked to do it. But not the fact that Trump gathered tens of thousands of psychopaths and set them loose on the Capitol.
And we'll look to make sure that it never happens again.
That's a no, by the way. And by the way, it's never going to happen again, which is why Kevin McCarthy is meeting with Donald Trump, because he's trying to scoop up Trump's audience. And by protecting him, look for a McCarthy Jordan ticket come 2024.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you.
Sorry, my first presser. You mentioned
This is his first presser. Oh, you got somebody from Right side?
Mr. Banks and Mr. Jordan not being allowed on, but at the same time, given that Mr. Jordan is a ranking member and Mr. Banks also is a leader of a large caucus, Mr. Davis is also, or Representative Davis, I'm sorry, Representative Davis is also a ranking member, and Speaker Pelosi didn't object to it, and then Representative Nels also voted to object, along with Representative Banks and Representative Jordan. Why do you think there was a difference between objecting to Representative Banks and Representative Jordan as opposed to Representative Davis?
Yeah, and why you got to pull everybody when these other three assholes, well...
No, because she named a chairman who objected to a presidential, and she has Raskin who objected and asked for an impeachment too. So I don't know if the objection matters because her members have objected before.
Well, obviously, that kind of blows a hole in your whole argument.
Yes, sir.
Specifically.
Launch bus with the gear on it. That's a finding from the
Senate.
Senate report.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what they investigated. What do you want to find out? Who locked the bus?
Why was it there? Why didn't they have the gear on? Why
I mean,
didn't they have it better positioned?
Isn't the answer that they were just incompetent? I mean, what more do you need to know about
That's
that?
incompetent.
Yeah, somebody, what is that, right side? What do you think? Newsmax?
What's the solution? We want to find solutions. This is why when you look at...
I think most of the time when something happens because of incompetence, competency is the solution.
Sheriff.
That's why the Senate gave these guys $10 million for training and equipment, so they wouldn't have to have their shit in a bus down the street.
Troy Nels, 30 years of law enforcement. First, what did he do?
Blows a hole in the hole. No, in the whole argument. And
that day. He'd been a member for 3 days. He's inside the chambers.
Unlike Jim Jordan, who's been a member his whole life.
People are breaking in. First, he joins other members and they barricade the door. People are breaking the glass. Officers have their weapons drawn.
Yeah, officers. But who killed Ashley Babbitt? Why aren't you calling that out? Why isn't that one of the things? Are the Republicans going to find out the answer to that question? That the president needs to know.
To protect from people coming in.
Protect from who? Oh, Antifa, right.
A member for only 3 days. We didn't call him congressman that day, we called him sheriff. You may have...
Yeah, he wasn't a sheriff. He's not technically a sheriff in those situations. By the way, you still don't think he's qualified to be alone with two other of your colleagues on the committee.
Watch the photos. He looks through the glass. He doesn't have a weapon, but he calms the situation.
Does he? Don't worry, we'll let you in just a minute. My colleagues and I are going to strangle some of these assholes ourselves, and then we'll open the door. Relax. What do you mean, calm the situation?
He talks to those who are on the other side.
But you don't mean Democrats, because the people that were on the other side of the wall were actually Republicans.
That's a leader. He sat through the entire Senate report. He's laid out every chronological order of what has taken place. He used...
Yeah, so did the New York Times. Why won't you let him on the committee then?
His own experience of being a sheriff from 8 years.
Yeah, and because Jim Jordan isn't allowed on the committee, he doesn't get to do whatever the fuck he was planning
Preparing
to do.
for situations just as what he was drawn in.
Damn.
And he has even more questions.
Well, why don't you let him ask him, you chicken shit?
That's why he wanted to serve.
And why don't you let him?
That's why we put him on.
And why don't you let him?
This is a microcosm of our conference. We have...
Well, apparently, that means that whoever Banks and Jordan represent in the caucus is incapable of picking up the slack if they're not there. What the fuck happens if both these assholes get COVID?
A right to name.
Yeah, where is Caden? We never found Caden.
This is what Nancy Pelosi is denying.
No, he isn't. No, she isn't. You are.
Yes, ma'am.
About any additional
Scope.
investigations
No,
here,
it was the scope.
Interfering with other federal investigations that are...
Well, there's a concern there because now you're getting individuals that are decisions being made whether they're serving time or not. You do not want to interfere with that, so the language matters. But from the very beginning, remember, I asked for a commission back in January.
That would cover shit that had nothing to do with January 6th.
Just like 9/11. Pelosi played games all along the
Yeah, why didn't the 9/11 Commission look into all plane crashes that involved buildings, that happened over the next 6 years?
way.
Anytime between 9/11 and the Commission, why didn't they look into any, Piper Cubs that went down?
She'd deal with the scope, and it was very clear of what we laid out. Equal number, equal subpoena power, equal scope, and don't interfere with any law enforcement going forward. She could not agree to that, and we watched today, even when the sides were separated, even when the power went to one, she went further than anyone's gone before.
Well, that's not true, because she actually chose Liz Cheney as one of the members of the committee. She chose a Republican anyways. That's clearly not further. Benghazi, anyone? Holy shit.
I think it's very clear to the American public. This is a sham.
Yes, it's very clear to the American public that this is a sham.
But we will make sure we get to the real answers. Thank you very much.
Yes, the real answers as to why won't you leave Donald Trump alone? Leave him alone, guys. Bye.
Congresswoman Cheney step down from the committee?
Should Congresswoman Cheney step down from the committee? Yeah, he doesn't have any say in that.